Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. Happy Tuesday, happy DeGrom Day, happy Mondesi Day. It's almost happy Alek Manoah Day too. We'll get into that in a second here. Fred, what's going on? How you doing?
Yeah, a lot of happy things going on here. People getting their DeGrom back, who they so desperately need. I think Mondesi might be the big get today. Manoah will be, and it will dominate fantasy headlines for a few days. But I mean, for those who drafted Mondesi, a lot of them probably planned their steals around him and have been, probably just dying to get him back. So if they can get him back now, I mean, he could steal 40 bases the rest of the way if things broke really well. He could steal 10 a month, right?
Yeah, he could. He could. I think it's unlikely to expect that many, but then again, because little things happen from time to time.
Yeah. He could steal 10. Like the way he's coming off a long-term injury, he could have other injuries and you could get 10. He will decide a lot. There'll probably be a lot of leagues that he decides. Like 40 might be a little high, but I mean, I think a projection for Mondesi, like before any of these injuries, was probably 50 something steals, which is about 9 a month. So, I mean, 4 times 9, there's 30. He could get probably anything from like mid 30s for steals to, like I said, like another injury and you get 10 from him. So that's a huge gap up the standings for probably a lot of the teams that have him. Because as I said, I was telling you before we started recording that I have 2 Mondesi teams. One's first in steals and one's third. So right. That's not how I planned it. Where I was really hoping he would just surge me up 8 or 9 points here in the next 6 weeks or something like that. But that's not going to happen for me. But I bet it will happen for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I bet it will. And the thing is, he's batting 7th today. He's not batting leadoff, not batting second. I can't really blame him. I mean, the Royals, you look at their lineup. Merrifield's hitting well. Santana's hitting well. Got a lefty on the mound. Sal Perez is batting 3rd. Benintendi quietly having a pretty good year. I think that's, although he's not hitting for like a lot of power, but 290, 355. He'll take that with 6 stolen bases, mind you. So it's not like the Royals. I mean, the Royals, if the Royals were a fantasy team, they'd be already towards the top in stolen bases.
That's right. And that's what we like about the Royals. That was something coming into the season is the Royals have been a good source of steals. They have a lot of team speed and, they've typically been willing to run. We didn't know if that would be the case this year, but so far it has. You're right. The Royals would be a team that would be a better fantasy lineup than it has been a real life lineup because of those stolen bases. So if everybody else is running, then Mondesi's going to run. And no matter where he hits in the lineup today, I'd say there's a good chance as soon as he's hitting, he'll be near the top.
If you're drafting this, say for instance, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern, where would you slot Mondesi?
Round how many teams in the league?
12 teams. It's the NFBC second chance. It was not really a hypothetical question, obviously there.
Yeah. No. Yeah. When I said how many, I didn't say hypothetically how many teams in the league.
So like in his ADP was somewhere in the second round, I think, in most leagues. Now that was in a 15, and a 12 might have been like late second, early third.
Late second, yeah. I'll drop him to like the 4th, just because he's coming off an injury. Maybe I drop him even further. No, I'll say about the 4th. Just because he's coming off an injury. Maybe he gets off to a really slow start, or maybe there's another injury happens. Like maybe he's not all the way back. So just for that, I would drop him to the 4th. But beyond that, I mean, all the reasons that he was getting drafted, you're right. He had an ADP around 20, 22, 23. All the reasons he had that ADP, they're all still there. So I can't take him there just knowing that he's been hurt. Like, I feel like I want healthy players there. It's too bad if the league was in like 10 more days, so I could see him for 10 days, I might put him all the way back up. But I'm going to say, instead of maybe ADP 22, 23, I'm going to say ADP 35, maybe 40. As I was saying that, I also remember that some of the players who were drafted up there aren't around anymore. Luis Robert or someone like that. Some of them have lost draft value too. So I'd say 35 to 40. What do you think? Where do you think I am compared to the masses on that?
I was thinking about that, be honest there, because I'm drafting in the 10 slot. And so Liz and I are drafting. We're drafting together.
So 3-4 turn, maybe.
Yeah. So either pick 34 or pick 39. That's in the range.
Oh, yeah. So, for example, you could double tap aces on that 1-2 turn. then take him and just gamble on getting those 35 to 40 steals, and then go sluggers, quality hitters, whatever for their next 2 or 3 picks to kind of back him up with, with some guys who are more batting average. And those guys are going to be around. I mean, there's not a ton of batting average out there right now, but just guys who are generally good hitters but don't steal bases. So you could easily double tap aces, something like a Bauer Scherzer turn, something like that, and then go Mondesi if he's still there. That's the interesting thing about these Memorial Day drafts is there's no real ADP for them, right? Like there's no
exactly. It's fresh powder. And this is the first of them, I think.
Yeah. So if you double tap aces, Whit Merrifield will be gone, I think, by the time you pick in the 3rd round, just with how many steals he has so far. Yeah. So if you double tap aces, it's fine. You just would go with more balanced hitters for your next 3 or 4 picks.
Whit Merrifield's got 13 stolen bases, only hitting 250. So
I
that's
know.
a slight draw, but a drag on him there. But I mean, come on, with some power, and you're not getting a complete 0 in those stats. So yeah, I mean. Yeah, unlike other stolen base artists, you're getting some. Same with Mondesi for that matter. You're going to get something there. Although you could get Tatis and get it all, but 13 homers, 10 stolen bases, despite 2 trips to the IL. He's played 31 games and he's got you 13 and 10. That's just ludicrous.
I know you're not getting Tatis at pick 10. I can say as someone who has Tatis in the Tout Wars League that you didn't really get the whole 13-10 though. You missed a few of those because he was out. Yeah. You couldn't have him the first day back and things like that. And in NFBC, I'm sure people didn't have them in for some half weeks and lost on some. But whatever, he's been awesome. He'll still go even with the shoulder. He's going to go before you guys pick. Yeah, I think the interesting thing is you could double tap aces and then. Like there's going to be hitters. If it's like I said, if it's not Mondesi, the great thing about Mondesi that he doesn't get enough credit for, like you said, is he's not a total batting average drain. Like people talk about him like he's this terrible player who only steals bases and hits 210. No, Joey Gallo is the guy who hits 210 and gets you like amazing. He gets you an amazing home run total. You don't have to eat 210 to get the steals from Mondesi. He typically hits around 245, 250, and in this day and age, that's okay. And he gets a few home runs. So
for that matter, 190 is the new 210. By the way, you really, totally. I mean, when the median NFBC main event batting average is 245, I mean, 210 doesn't kill you. It doesn't help you. That's right. But you could have. I mean, Dylan Moore, he kills you at 168. Although he does have 5 and 8, 5 homers, 8 bags. But he's hurt. Besides stinky, so he's got that going for him.
That's right. So, but if you get Mondesi, like you can expect him to be, at about a 15. He's typically like a 15 homer type pace. Like you should expect, 2 homers a month, 2 to 3 homers a month from him the rest of the way. It's not like it's going to be a total 0. You pair him with I don't know how far JD Martinez will fall in these drafts, but if he's all the way back up to where he was, like with this hot start and everything.
And he qualifies in outfield now.
And he qualifies in outfield for sure. But I'm thinking someone of that skill set, someone who you think of as more like a 300 power hitter, paired with Mondesi, paired with a couple aces, sounds like a good start to me.
Yeah. I'll think about him in that 3-4 turn. Part of me is like I want to just go with. I just want to go with like. Just all hitters early and see if we can, steer into this whole pitching environment. Part of me is like, okay, it's very comfortable to have the aces and then just build after that. That seems like the more thing. There's a freak injury here, by the way. It was Zach Plesac just went on the IL for the Indians. Did you see this? Just came out about 7 minutes ago.
This happened after we started. Okay.
Yeah, Mandy Bell, I think she covers for The Athletic, but let me give her proper credit. No, for MLB.com, Mandy Bell reports that Plesac went and got an X-ray and revealed a non-displaced fracture in his right thumb. Tito said, Terry Francona said that Plesac was rather aggressively ripping off his shirt, got it caught on a chair at his locker. You can't make this up.
Oh, man. Got it caught on a chair at his locker. Well,
he had a really bad start on Sunday. Well, it was a really frustrating start. I should.
So he hurt himself aggressively ripping off his shirt, and a Husker, last week hurt himself punching the wall or whatever after his bad start. It's as soon as as soon as pitchers have a bad start, they need to be monitored for the next couple hours.
Yeah.
Just have a guy that you pay minimum wage to just follow around starting pitchers who have had a bad start and make sure that they emerge healthy for the next 2 hours or something. Would you, I guess, non-displaced fracture, that could be in his thumb, that could be a little while.
It could be. It could very well be.
I'm not going to speculate too much right now, but that could be a drop in some leagues. Like, he hasn't been awesome this year, like some people were expecting. I guess we'll just wait and see on a timeline, but that could be like Manoah. Like I thought Manoah was doing great, and he's out 2 months, and I still said in most situations I would drop him. Plezak has a 4.14 ERA and a 4.58 FIP, mostly because he's given up a lot of home runs. He's only got a 102 WHIP, but he's had good batted ball luck to get that 102 WHIP. I'm going to say if he's out 6 to 8 weeks, like, I would, in some leagues, I would look at dropping him.
Yeah, he's definitely on my do not fly list now for tomorrow night's draft. That's for sure.
I just think, like, if you're going to hold a bench spot, again, we talk like if you have IL spots, totally different. But if you're thinking NFBC, if you're going to hold a bench spot for a pitcher for, we'll see, but a couple months, you better be pretty sure that when he comes back, he's going to really help you. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. It's just such a dumb injury, but dumb injuries happen in baseball. That's what they do. Just thought I'd break into that. We were talking Mondesi, but the other massive, huge news is Bryce Harper is on the IL, and it's a hand injury. The funny thing about this is, for a while, they just insisted he was getting a day off on that Sunday, but then you see him bunt, and okay, come on. And after the fact, Joe Girardi says, I withheld information because I didn't want. He believed it to be a competitive advantage not share it there, after insisting there was no medical issue at hand. I think it's with his shoulder, actually, not his. I got to double check on the reasoning for this, but come on, this is a killer injury too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Harper, like you said, like he wasn't healthy, and now so he's. I was just looking up the reason for he withheld the information because he felt like it was a competitive disadvantage to share it.
This stuff should be illegal. This is just terrible. They got to fine him for that. That's ridiculous. And you got to realize too, I mean, yes, there's competition, but there's also, I mean, know who your audience is, know who's, I know, I'm self-involved here when I say think about the fantasy owners, but my God, how many people play fantasy? How many people rely on this? And you're just straight up lying.
Yeah, I mean, I get a little used to it because I spend a lot of time following the sport of hockey where they don't even have to tell you what's injured on the player. They just have to tell you if it's above or below the waist.
Upper body, lower body.
Upper body, lower body. That's it. That's all they have to tell you. And they have to tell you, I think, either day to day or indefinitely, one or the other. That's it. And it can be the most obvious injury, and they won't, a player can skate off the ice holding his shoulder, and they'll be like, upper body injury, no timetable for him. And, and you just have to watch practice to see when they return. So I'm used to it. With Harper, you knew something was wrong. He was 0 for his last 16 with 10 strikeouts. Girardi saying that, that he just needed, I guess, I don't know. Girardi saying he had needed another day to reset, saying that yesterday. It sucks for fantasy owners because a lot of people he's such a good player that a lot of people probably just hopefully put him in their lineup. They were just hopeful, right?
Right.
Sure, I'll put him in my lineup. Maybe I can get 2 or 3 games from him before Friday. Maybe he'll be back in the lineup Tuesday. Or if it's a weekly, right? They're just like, oh, okay, I'll leave him in. And now they're going to get a 0. And I don't know. It's ridiculous. I do understand. I don't really understand that much in baseball. Like, it's not, the players don't come in contact with each other. It's not that much of an advantage. It's not like if you tell someone that you got an injured shoulder, they're going to go and hit it or something like that. I do understand it a little bit in sports like hockey, but again, the NFL is the most violent sport going as far as team sports go, and they have to divulge everything. The injury and the how much he's practiced and whether he's questionable, probable, or doubtful. They have to be, and it's because of sports betting and them wanting to be transparent. And I think that other sports would be wise to follow the NFL's lead on that. I think the NFL is way ahead of other sports on that.
Which is just wild to say. But then again, I mean, it's some things the NFL's always been way ahead. When it comes to marketing the game, they're way ahead too.
And it's a sport where you could gain the greatest advantage from knowing your opponent's injury, right? Like if you knew
Absolutely.
something's injured on your opponent, you can go right at it if you so choose. But it's the sport that's gambled on the most by far. And so I think that's more prevalent with the NFL to make sure that they keep their house tidy in that area. And but I think other sports, baseball, hockey, whatever, I think they would be wise to have come up. It's not hard. Come up with an official criteria for these things and make it mandatory and do what the NFL does. If someone's lying, if someone's like not following the system, then fine them. That's what the NFL fines teams every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, it's a wrist and forearm bruise related to a hit by pitch that happened way back on April 28th, and he's been dealing with it. Remember, there was another Sunday night game where he was bunting, and we're like, okay, what's going on there? And then he struck out later in that game, and he looked in pain. You know, it's just he's been dealing with this for a while, and they've just kind of been trying to fake it. And the funny thing is, he was actually playing pretty well prior to that. Hadn't been getting any RBIs because nobody had been getting on base in front of him. Oh my God, if you're again, we'll go back to the if you're drafting tomorrow night question. Mm-hmm. How much of a discount do you need before you think about taking him?
I'd take Modesty first, I think, before Harper. I would easily. Actually, for sure. Yeah. So easily. Harper. So you're gonna have to carry. So do these leagues? I'm not in one of these leagues drafting. When do they start?
Tomorrow night's the first one. The games start on Memorial Day on Monday.
Okay. So you have until Monday where you could get Harper back at, right? This I also need to be backdated just a little bit. So you may not have to keep him out for long. I'll say like round, but this injury could linger and nag him. I'd say round like 4 or 5. Does that make sense? If he was a round 2 before, round 4 or 5, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's just because we've had so many injuries. I guess in a 12-teamer, it's one thing. In the main event, I'd in a 15-teamer with no IL spots, I'd really need a big discount. I'd need a bigger discount there than in the 12, just because of replacement value. I think 5 or 6.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's all about percentages, right? Like missing, say, the first 2 weeks of your 6-month season. Is not as big of a deal as if you believe, say, Harper's going to miss the first 2 weeks of your 4-month season. So It's all about percentages that way and how long you have to hold someone on the bench for and how many weeks you don't have them. So, in a 12, replacements are easier to find. I think like maybe like round 4 or 5. He was still, until this injury crept in, he was still like pretty good Bryce Harper. Like his OPS is 884. You take that 0 for 16 out, it's back in the 900s. That's his career OPS is 900. Like he was pretty typical Bryce Harper. So it's just how quickly can he move past this? And, at least the fact they didn't put him on the IL right away means that they didn't think it was like a huge problem. So I'm staying, I want to win one of these leagues if I'm in it. So not finish 4th. So I'm going to say, I'd still maybe take a gamble and go round 4 or 5. But I do have a bad habit sometimes getting a little too optimistic on injured players. So still holding Carlos Carrasco, who I drafted in the main.
And not coming back till July now.
I'm expecting him around the All-Star break now. And it was my idea, and out of myself and Jeff Zimmerman, and I take full blame for it. Round 19. Round 19 sounded so good for a 4th-round pitcher who was supposed to miss April and maybe part of May. That sounded like great value, and now here we are. So, but I keep stubbornly holding him because they never said, he keeps getting slowly pushed back. So
someone offers you Yoan Moncada for Bryce Harper. Do you say no?
Yeah, I'd say no.
Okay, that's not good enough, huh? Aaron Judge?
I'm never the Judge guy, but yeah, I think I'd take Judge. Yeah. So one of my things with these Memorial Day leagues, I'd actually be a little more willing to steer into guys who I think are injury risk but are playing right now, because the shorter the league is, the less the risk is. So like my concern over is Judge over 6 months. I'm still concerned with him over 4 months, but the shorter the league is, the less I'm concerned about him getting hurt.
All right, fair enough.
So I take a little bit of that off, although I know 4 months is still a pretty long time.
Yeah. 2 more IL moves, and then we'll move on. Kyle Gibson just went on the IL. And, you would think, okay, whatever, Kyle Gibson. Take a look at what Kyle Gibson has done this year. And it's actually, he's been pretty good. And I'm never the Kyle Gibson guy, but I got to say, he's really kind of changed his pitch mix. He's got a 2.24 ERA, a 101 WHIP, 48 Ks in 60 innings. You'd like to see more strikeouts, but still, you're getting those ratios. Now he goes on the IL. It's a right groin strain. It's not an arm problem or anything. So, that's at least there's that. But, you do need your legs to pitch too. Where are you on Kyle Gibson going forward?
Yeah, it's crazy to say that. Like, I think my stance is that because it's a groin and you never know, it could be a fairly short injury, right? Like 2 weeks or something like that, misses 2 or 3 starts. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think you hold Kyle Gibson. I think you hold Kyle Gibson. At least hold him until you get a time frame. And if that time frame is a couple of weeks, I think you keep him. And we're talking about someone who is sitting on waivers, not even on opening day, but sitting on waivers in a lot of leagues 2 or 3 weeks into the season. Like, people still weren't buying in. When I look at his strikeout rate this year is actually a little bit higher than his strikeout rate last year. It just looks worse on the K per 9 because he's facing fewer batters per inning. So, so he's not striking out. So his K per 9's down about, a half. It's from 7.75 to 7.16, but the strikeout, his strikeout percentage is actually up a bit. So he's striking out batters a little more than he usually does, or than he did last year at least. His BABIP's been low. So it's not like the 101 whip's not going to stick. But even if that normalized to a 120 whip, and then the strikeouts per inning came up a little bit because he's facing an extra couple batters every start, his FIP's 332. Like, if I'll wait a couple weeks for a guy if he can have an ERA in the 3s and a whip around 120, right?
Right. Not a good team, but a good ballpark to pitch in, and you got a good closer. I wouldn't say a good bullpen, but he does have a good closer behind him at least.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got 3 wins in 10 starts, which isn't awesome, but it's also not totally terrible. It puts you on pace for 10 or 11 wins. So, and in this era, I think that's fine. And maybe even Kyle Gibson could be trade bait this summer, right? Like, he would be the kind of, if he's still pitching well, he could be the kind of sell high guy that a team like the Rangers should just move on. Like, this would be the 1 year in a long time where you could get at least something for Kyle Gibson. So they should probably take it.
I agree. And I think they should be trading Ian Kennedy too. And everybody but Adolis Garcia, basically.
Ian Kennedy to your Reds, and maybe they can, the Reds are kind of falling back right now.
Yeah, we got to actually score a run or two. That'd be nice. We need some hitters at this point in time. Everybody needs hitters. The hitter pool is just getting diminished. We were trying to pick up outfielders this week, and it's giving me a headache. I got excited that I got Andrew Stevenson for $1 in the league because he's going to fill in for Victor Robles. We got excited for Hunter Dozier in another league, and this is also in the main. I didn't get as excited, but I also did get Josh Reddick in a league for $1. I mean, that's how low we're digging. And then in that same league, I just lost Harrison Bader yesterday. He's got a right rib hairline fracture trying to make a diving catch. Missed it. Is he a drop in a 15-teamer with no IL?
Yeah, I think he probably is. And when we were messaging about these injuries before we went on today, just getting our ducks in a row, I thought, I don't think there's anything from the Bader injury that can help you. Like, Williams will start a little more in the outfield. Edmund might go to the outfield a bit more often, and Carpenter can maybe start a little bit more. I don't think there's much there. I think with Bryce Harper, maybe Brad Miller will play more. He's hit really well this year. I don't think he can hit as well as he's hit this year going forward, but Miller might start a lot more often, at least till Harper
Miller's
comes
in
back.
Philly. Miller's in Philly.
Oh, that's what I meant. Sorry. I was jumping back and forth. So from the 2 ILs, the 2 hitter ILs, because you're saying, you're saying we're crying for hitters right now. I don't think the Bader injury, I think, so Corey Schwartz would always say that fantasy baseball is a zero-sum game. Every time someone benefits, every time someone loses, someone benefits. Bader lot, but it's not totally always a zero-sum game, because we lost Bader, who was useful in a 15-team league. I don't think we're going to get anyone who's useful in a 15-team league.
I agree.
It's zero-sum, as in the pitchers who are facing the Cardinals have a little bit of an easier road. I think with Harper, I think his injury, I think that might open a little more playing time. I would think that Girardi will try to get Miller into the lineup a little more often since he's hitting well. They need a guy for Harper. Alex Baum hasn't hit well at all. Maybe some Harper, owners out there could just grab Miller. He's not Harper, but maybe they can, at least in a deep league where there's not a lot on waivers, they can pivot to Miller. We'll see what he does for the rest of the week. But Bader, I don't think the Cardinals are going to give you anything to replace him with.
I'd agree with that. And Philly's outfield has just been awful. And now the Cardinals outfield is gone. Here, let me float an idea at you here. I think it's going to be at Matt Carpenter that benefits, but instead of who I think it could be. But what if the Cardinals called up Nolan Gorman, their top prospect? He's playing second base in the minors. Put Edmund in the outfield.
Yeah,
With
I think
O'Neill and get out. I mean, that's an opening. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
no. I think that's a good idea, and I think this is the time of year when teams should look at that. We've had about 3 weeks of minor league time, so any of these guys who were left at the alternate training site and were just kind of playing against teammates, now they've had enough live action probably to get it back. Anything they lost in spring training, depending on how long Bader's going to be out, I think that would be a good idea, and I think we're going to continue. It's funny. I thought when I sent the first script this morning, I thought by now we would have talked about Manoah 3 times over. We haven't got to him yet because of all these recent injuries. We will,
Right.
but
yeah, you've been a very model of restraint. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, but I think that we're going to start to see this steady stream. I mean, Owen Miller wasn't a good prospect, but he was a prospect who came up right before Sunday, and now we've got Manoah coming, and we've had Kelenic, and we've had Gilbert, and I think we're going to keep seeing prospects come, and it'll be up to us to decipher, who's the real deal among them and who isn't. But now that there's minor league games, I think the time comes now when these prospects can come up.
Yeah, I think that's right. Before we talk Manoah and prospects generally, quick note from our sponsors. And for those of you on the live stream, you didn't have to deal with that, but thank you for those on the podcast for listening to those sponsorship messages. This podcast is brought to you by WynnBET. That's WYNN. If you are allowed to bet on sports in your state, and WynnBET is your source to go to for that, we appreciate their sponsorship. We will have more details from them in the near future about how you can access all their tools and all their abilities to bet. Tomorrow. It is the eve of Alek Manoah. I don't know who's more excited, you or Clay Link. Clay Link's all over him, has him in Tout Wars. I actually have him in AL Tout Wars, picked him up a couple weeks ago. But Fred, I didn't activate him this week because the Jays started stupid early yesterday, then announced it like right around game time. Didn't get him moved switched in, but I'm actually okay with it because he's facing the Yankees.
I think I'd want him anyways, just for the excitement. Now you have to hope that maybe one of your less important pitchers. Do you have anyone starting tonight who could go on the IL? Maybe someone can go on the IL on your team tonight. And
probably will happen. I don't want to put the kibosh on anybody, but yeah, it could happen.
Right. Yeah, because otherwise you can put him up on your Tout Wars lineup Thursday, right? Like the day after he debuts.
Yeah, that's a problem. So I mean, I had to have someone go on the IL today. I mean, yesterday. It was basically today, and I could have
today. Yeah. You've got till midnight for someone to go on the IL.
Come on, guys, you can do it. Come on, 7.
One of you middle relievers must have a strain something. Every AL team, right, has a couple middle relievers who are just completely meaningless to their roster. So one of you guys must have a strain something. We get Manoah in. I would want Manoah in just for the excitement of it. I talk about a wild swing, especially because it's fairly early in the week on a Wednesday. Like his NFBC Sunday fab cost is going to swing wildly based on how he does. Like he goes 6 innings, 1 run, it's going way up. And if he goes 4 innings, 4 runs, it goes way down. Yes, exactly. It goes way down. But this is the reality we live in. Like whether we're bidding 270, 250 on this guy or 125 will depend on his initial game stat line, which it shouldn't, but it will.
So you're a Jays guy. Tell me, what sort of prospect is Manoah? What should we look for from him?
Yeah, so he's a big guy, and I know there was some, dispute at the beginning about whether he would have the endurance to be a good starter, but I think he will. So he's a big guy. I think, his numbers in spring training, it's so hard without a minor league season last year, but his numbers in spring training were great. And then his numbers starting off the AAA season were great. And this guy's a really good prospect. Like he was the 11th overall pick when he was drafted to the majors. So it's not like this guy's I heard some people talking about how this guy's like come out of nowhere and he wasn't on prospects list. He wasn't on prospects lists like a few weeks or a few months ago because there was no minor league season last year. Had there been a minor league season last year, he probably would have done everything we've seen recently. He probably would have done quite well and he would have moved up prospect lists. This is the kind of thing we need to be able to adapt to coming off 2020, where someone like Manoah can just jump way, way up. Everybody wanted Nate Pearson before the season and no one had any interest in Manoah. But I think had there been a minor league season last year, that would have been a little bit different. So he may not be ready, but everything he's done since he showed up at spring training this year looks like someone who's ready. So I think I think he can stick with the Blue Jays. Like maybe he'll have a Pearson thing where he's not good and they have to send him back down. But I think he could stick with the Blue Jays. And I also think there's a lot of starting pitchers who are off our radars right now in general because of the lack of the minor league season and the late start this year. There will be some guys in July who have an ERA in the ones in AAA and they get the call and they're maybe not as big name guys, but they're throwing really well and they come into the majors and they help teams.
I'd agree with that. And the thing is, I think you can distinguish Manoah versus like Logan Gilbert and Daniel Lynch. Gilbert and Lynch had, Gilbert had one, I think, AAA start before he got the call. Lynch didn't have any. He was only at the alternate training camp site. I think he's since had one minor league start. It wasn't that great. But Manoah's had 3 awesome starts at AAA following an awesome spring training.
Yeah, and like I said, he was supposed to be an awesome pitcher. Like he got picked 11th overall in the MLB draft. Like those guys are supposed to be studs. So he's supposed to be a stud. He got he was drafted in 2019. He barely got his feet wet that season in the minors. And then last year he dealt with what everyone else dealt with, which was not having a minor league season. So he's working with the Blue Jays coaches at the alternate site. And now, and here we are. But this is someone who he's arrived fast. I think if you told the Blue Jays when they drafted him in 2019 in June, if you said he'd make his MLB debut in under 2 years, even without a 2020 minor league season, I think the Blue Jays would have said you're crazy. So he has come faster, than maybe they would have expected. But again, he's a college pitcher, so he had a fair amount of experience when they had drafted him. Those guys can come quickly. And again, he's a big guy. Like physically, his frame, like he should be ready for this. He's not a young pitcher who still needs to fill out or anything. So I think he could have plenty of success. It's not the greatest environment to go into. The AL East is not the easiest division. The Blue Jays are on their way to Buffalo soon, but that's not a great park to pitch in either. So it's not going to be easy on him. I wish he was in the National League. I think he's quite valuable, but I do hear some people saying, well, this is the last of the great pitching prospects who are going to come up this year. Like it's Gilbert and this guy, and then that's it. And I think that's wrong because, like I said, I think if we had a minor league season last year and one that had started earlier this year, like there would just be guys who would emerge. There'd be guys with a 2 ERA, a 1.8 ERA, carving up AAA, and then you'd be like, okay, this guy just got called up. Let's put a little bit of fab on him. Like I think those guys are going to still exist. If some people think that they should just bid $350 on Manoah because there won't be any other pitchers coming up from the minors that they'll want, I think that's incorrect.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It is worth noting that wherever he went, his control was pretty good, as opposed to say Lynch, who has had some command issues there in the past. So, I hate to paint with the broad brush. Every pitcher is different. Sometimes, the first 2 or 3 starts, nobody has a book on the guy. The Yankees saw him in spring training, which is interesting. That his first start is against the Yankees, so they've actually seen him before. It won't be a complete utter mystery. Now, I don't know what the lineups were for those, but the coaching staff at least was there. The scouts were at least there. So, it's not a total blank slate.
Yep, absolutely. I have seen the lineup that he faced with the Yankees. It was medium. It was a pretty decent spring training lineup. It doesn't compare. It's not the Yankees full lineup, but it had some regulars in it for sure. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't like he faced an almost all minor leaguer lineup. It was decent. So, and the Yankees lineup so far, like the Yankees haven't been raking. They're doing really well lately, but they're doing really well with pitching. Like the Yankees lineup, I don't think is in its peak form right now. I would be interested. I haven't done this yet, but I may map out. I want to see exactly how the Blue Jays manage. It's hard with the Blue Jays because sometimes they like to just give Ryu an extra day off and kind of push in a 6 starter once in a while to pace him out. So like, I'd love to jump forward every 5th game and kind of see if the schedule sets up to give Manoah a better chance to hit the ground running. But in all honesty, like the park that they play out of and the AL East and everything, like it's unlikely that his first, say 5 or 6 starts that he'll have a lot of easy ones in there.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
Probably 2 starts, so decent chance 2 starts next week. So since he's a Wednesday this week.
And I'd be really encouraged too that it's not in Dunedin. I mean, I knew that Dunedin would be a hitter friendly venue, but as it got warmer, that ball started flying. The wind started picking up. You could see like the day patterns and everything flies out to right. You're like, ooh, I kind of want to avoid this now. Like I flat out released Ryan Yarbrough because I didn't want, if I couldn't use him in a 2-step, like including yesterday's start, and he was kind of a margin guy. This isn't a 12 team, not a 15. I was like, I might as well cut him, and I can always pick him back up if I really, really want him. But If I can't use him in a two-stepper, this is going to be my cut if I need this spot.
Yeah, I understand that. I actually ended up using him wherever I had him. It worked out fine. He didn't get the win, but it worked out fine. But I even get the sense from the Jays that they're anxious to leave Dunedin. Even the hitters who are raking there.
Yeah, Semyon said he didn't hated it there.
Yeah, I think they don't. I don't think, which is weird. You'd think like baseball money is so tied to numbers, and like Semyon, just shut up and hit your 40 home runs in Dunedin, and don't worry about it. But
it's not the hitting side of things; it's the infield. It's rock
that's
hard.
right. I don't think they liked being in Dunedin at all, and I do think this whole thing is wearing a bit on the Blue Jays. Like we talked about this last year, and I don't want to get too off topic on this. We talked about it last year. I have heard some things from the Blue Jays. Just now now a lot of them are moving their families to Buffalo, and they got to move all their stuff to Buffalo, and some of them are just going to live out of a hotel because they're not even sure how long they're going to be in Buffalo, because maybe at some point they can come back to Toronto, maybe by late summer or fall, and it might depend how they're doing and how COVID's doing. And a lot of them dealt with all this last year, and I do think it wears on them a little bit. I think maybe it's easier for some guys. Some of the younger guys don't have a family with them and they can just kind of do whatever. But I do think it wears on the guys a little bit. And they didn't like that ball, and they did not like that ballpark in Dunedin in the facility there, as far as a regular season facility. And also, if you watch a lot of Blue Jays games like I do, people aren't cheering for them. Like a lot of their
half
games,
and half at best. That's right.
Totally. Yeah, you get the Yankees in there, and that's a Yankees crowd. When the Braves were there, I thought it was mostly a Braves crowd. The Red
Rays,
Sox,
it's across town.
Absolutely. So I felt like that's got to be a little. I know it's not like a packed house and people going nuts and the fans cheers, but typically you can, as you know, you can watch a baseball game and kind of look on your phone or or have your head down, and you can tell when a hit happens, whether it was the home team or the away team, without even looking at the screen. With the Blue Jays game, I couldn't tell because I hear the same mix of like medium level cheering for every single hit.
100% agree. And I'm glad you said that because I was watching the game yesterday, day game. Now, it was the Rays broadcasters on DirecTV. I don't think I got the Toronto feed yesterday. Vlad hits 2 monster shots, and you should the crowd should be going nuts. I mean, he just crushed those, especially the second one tied the game.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, there goes a home run. Semyon's ball to tie the game in the 10th. It's like drifting. Oh, that's a home run. Oh, I guess the game is tied. You couldn't tell, like there was no excitement. Now, some of that might be the Rays announcer's fault, because he doesn't want to hype it up. But at the same time, that's a big moment in the game. You just could not tell. Yeah,
you can usually hear that crowd noise. And I don't think it bothered them as much last year because there were no fans anywhere. So it's like everybody was just playing in an empty stadium, or pretty much everywhere. Everybody was basically playing in an empty stadium last year. But this year, like I think they feel a little bit like they're on the road the whole time. I think they'll feel a little better in Buffalo. I think that'll be a Yankees crowd when the Yankees come to town, but beyond maybe a bit of a Red Sox crowd. But I think beyond that, the Jays will feel a little more like the home team when they're in Buffalo, but nobody can cross the border. So they're not getting Ontario people, Toronto people coming in to cheer for them. But I do think but most of those guys have played in Buffalo coming up through. I think it'll mostly be a Blue Jays crowd, and hopefully that'll be good for them. And I did start to feel, I don't feel sorry for them exactly is the right word, but I did start to feel some empathy for them. I think it's just the second season in a row. I know the Raptors right now were adamant. They said when next season starts, we need to be in Toronto. We need to be in Toronto. We need to be in our homes or condos or whatever. Right. We need to have some stability. Like 1 year, this is enough. We hated it in Florida. We're not going back. We need to be in Toronto. And I think the Blue Jays feel the same way.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. We all need continuity. We all need that stability. And it's hard to be on the road for 162 games. It really is. And that's what it has to feel like. So we talked about Manoah. One guy we won't see today is Joe Adell. Back in the lineup today for AAA Salt Lake. Right now he has 10 homers in 17 games at Salt Lake. Now, he's also has 27 strikeouts in 17 games at AAA. So you can see there's still some things he needs to work on. But, the Angels, they're on the precipice here of just being done for the season here, Fred. I think you and I both, our dark horses are both really floundering now. Your Angels and my Nats. And of course, the Angels don't have Trout. They've already had 2 stints where they didn't have Rendon. There's no urgency here, though. Adell's not getting the call. Brandon Marsh isn't getting the call. They're content with Taylor Ward and Juan Lagares.
Yeah, I think they're giving up. I think it's early. Sorry, Angels fans, but they're last in the division. They're minus 50 in run differential. Only the Tigers and the Orioles are worse in the
Mm-hmm.
American League, and the Orioles are barely worse. Like I think with Trout out, they're giving up. I think if Trout was here and they were 500, Adele would be up. So now I think the timeline for Adele has shifted to let's make sure we get Adele right this year, and that
Yeah.
when he does come up, he stays, and that's the end of him being a minor leaguer. I think that's the philosophy that they're looking at now, rather than could Adele help us get 1 or 2 more wins in June, because that might be the difference in us getting a wild card spot. I think they might be giving up now because they're behind and because of the Trout injury.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
They have, and the thing is, they've allowed the second most runs per game in baseball. Can you name a team that's worse? Actually,
Worse for allowing runs. Well, I do happen to have the standings up in front of me when I was going over those run differentials, but no, actually, I don't see it immediately. Who is worse than them for allowing runs?
my Cincinnati Reds
Oh,
at
your Cincinnati Reds.
5.62 runs per game.
Oh, runs per game. I was looking at total runs allowed, where the Angels are first. They must play a little more games, but
they played 2 more games than the Reds.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and that's not all of them have been allowed by Luis Castillo. It just feels like it.
Still rolling them out there in my Tout NL lineup almost every game except the Coors one. I've had him out there. I don't know what his ERA is other than the Coors game, but it's still not very good at all.
No, it's not. Well, at least you had him out for that disaster. Honestly, I'd still trade for him. The velocity's there. We're doing this midseason draft. Listen, IR, and there was a Twitter thread going. I said I'd probably consider him around pick 150. Is that outrageous?
Nope, not at all. I mean, you don't have to use him if you take him at pick 150. You don't have to use him for his the first time you have him, right? Like you could, but you don't have to.
I'd have a hard time not using somebody that I took in the 12th round.
I don't know. I could at least look. I could at least look at it a little bit. The thing with Castillo is, so his first start of the season was a disaster, and then the Coors start was a disaster. But that was a 1-start week. Anyone who used him the way he was going at Coors deserve what they got. If you don't,
I'd agree with that.
If you don't look at those 2 starts, he hasn't been good at all. But he's more been like generically bad. Like he keeps letting in 3 or 4 runs over 5 innings or something. It's 5 innings, 4 runs, 4 1/3, 3 runs. Like he's not good. He hasn't been good. I'm not trying to say he's been good at all, but you could have missed the one big blow up. I think him around pick 150 makes sense. But I do think, okay, so let's say you take him around the 12th round. He's probably what at that point? Maybe your number 3, 4, something like that. I think you could set that guy the odd start if you don't like the matchup. It depends what your rest of your pitching looks like. But so that's the hard part is if you took him as your ace, like that, I keep rolling him out there in Tout NL because what else am I going to do? It's Tout NL.
Right.
I don't play Mitch Keller, but every other starting pitcher I have, I play. I just need the strikeouts. So, and same with in a mixed league, if you took him as your ace, I think you almost because you don't have the pitching depth unless you've gotten Verdon or Alex Wood and stuff like that. But I think if he's your 3rd or 4th pitcher drafted, I think in that Memorial Day league, you could draft him and not necessarily be tied to using him every time out.
Yeah, maybe you're right about that. I'm going to do if you could trade for him, what would you offer? If you had him, what would you accept? There's could be 2 different levels, obviously, but let's throw out a couple of names. Would you accept Jose Barrios for him?
I have 0 Barrios, so I'll take 2 seconds here to just familiarize myself. Yep.
I think that's too high, actually. I think I'd snap
Barrios. I take Barrios for sure. Barrios' numbers this year are almost exactly what I expected them to be. The whip's a little low, but other than that, I take Barrios for sure.
Yeah. Let me pivot a different way.
If it's a set and forget type pitcher, then I'll do it. I think that's kind of, which is why I think your round 12 assessment, I think that's when we start getting into pitchers who are not totally a set and forget pitcher.
Charlie Morton, yay or nay?
I'll take Castillo.
Okay.
I just think Morton hasn't been good either, and the upside is higher on Castillo. I think I'd just cross my fingers on Castillo being better.
Okay, fair enough.
And I guess that's also the order I draft them in. right? If I was drafting on the weekend. So I view Charlie Morton right now as I'll use him some weeks and some weeks I won't, depending on what the matchup looks like. That's where he's kind of gone down to that point for me. Like he hasn't been good this year, wasn't good last year. I'm going to evaluate him like week to week, and that's kind of where I'm at with Castillo. Except the unfortunate thing with Castillo, like I said, is a lot of us who have him, you spent so much to get him that you just don't have the depth behind him to sit him.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless you magically found some of these guys who have emerged, right? Like Freddie Peralta or some guys like that maybe have the luxury.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you value Carlos Rodon, by the way?
I take him over Luis Castillo. I have some Rodon in a couple leagues. I would view him as probably going into your draft like a number 2. I was thinking about this actually going to your draft. Like there's the aces, the obvious aces, Scherzer and all those guys, DeGrom and all them. And then there's like some guys like Woodruff who have pitched their way into being aces, Lance Lynn. I think after who have like a good track record prior to this year, even Corbin Burns have a track record prior to this year and have been awesome this year. I think once we get past those guys, then I'm in on Rodon.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so, I think anyone who was really good last year and has been really good this year is ahead of Rodon. He falls into the next group of guys who have been like not really good either year or really good this year and not good last year or vice versa. But I would draft Rodon. Well, Rodon will go way higher than Castillo in your draft, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. How about another problem child this year, but pretty good last year? Blake Snell came off a tough start yesterday against Milwaukee. Can't go deep into games. Where would you put him in this list?
I'll take Castillo over him.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not a Blake Snell guy. I never really have been. I just feel like there's always just like, other than the one season, there's just always like ifs and buts with him. Like 2017, the ratios were high. 2018 was the amazing year. 2019 and in 2017 and 2019, he's hurt at times and the ratios are high. And then last year they were pretty good, but he's averaging like 4.5 innings, like 11 starts, 50 innings. He couldn't even average 5 innings to start last year. This year, he's not averaging 5 innings to start. The ratios aren't good. The walk rate's way up. I find he's all over the place. I think I would rather take Castillo and just hope for like a full rebound. I will be surprised if we have a stretch this summer where Snell's like really good. But if Castillo got his act together and we had a month where he had a 2.3 ERA and was like great, 6 innings every start, that wouldn't shock me if he got his act together. Because like you said, the velocity is still fine. He was such a high-end pitcher before. I'm going to put Snell I put him ahead of Charlie Morton and behind Castillo. What do you think of that?
I think you're right, actually. I did a little bit more looking on Snell, and WHIP is a category. And he's had one year where he's really helped you in WHIP. Last year, 120. Okay, that's fine, but it's not like, oh, he's a huge plus there. Instead he's he's a little bit above average, and he just doesn't go deep into games. So you're getting fewer innings of that too. The plus side, 67 Ks and 44 innings. The negative side, only 44 innings and 28 walks to go with it.
Yeah. So looking back on and his strikeout rate, even though it looks good on K per 9 this year, it's the opposite of what I was saying with Kyle Gibson. It looks great on K per 9. His strikeout rate's the same. It's the same as it was basically his whole career. Like it's 33%. Last year it was 31. The year before it's 33. The year before it's 32. It's the same. It's just his K per 9's higher because he's walking more batters, so he's facing more batters. But if you go back and look at the Blake Snell trade, like which is the organization that understands pitching the best? Right? If it's not the Dodgers, it's the Rays, and it's probably the Rays because they do it without the budget of the Dodgers. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Like the Rays understand pitching so well, and somehow they traded Blake Snell to the Padres, and everybody was like, okay, now he's going to be free.
The gloves are off.
Yeah. The gloves are off. He's going to throw 6 innings and pitch just as well. Because the Rays don't know that he could have been doing that all along. Like they don't get it. He could have been doing that all along. Well, here we are a few months later, and whatever's happened to him in San Diego, he's not pitching as well as he did with the Rays, which I guess in hindsight, shouldn't be that surprising, right? Like the Rays know what they're doing.
Yeah. Even though it might have been a mistake in the World Series. And I think that was,
might have been.
Everyone had that in the back of their mind. And yeah, I get it. I get it, but yeah, ouch. That's
So
been rough.
it's like it might have been a mistake in the World Series, but the overall totality of what the Rays do with pitchers typically works as well as what any other team does with pitchers. So if they said, this is the best you can get from Blake Snell, it's not going to get any better than this, and they traded him, I don't know. It's hard to, looking back on it, not to say the Padres do a bad job or anything, but it's hard to think that they could unlock something that the Rays couldn't. That doesn't happen very often.
Joe Sheehan has Snell in mixed labor with us, and he was musing about even dropping Snell. He's so frustrated. And I go, there's trading allowed in this hypothetical league, and there are people that like to trade. And then I looked. I've got 12 points in WHIP. I'm not touching them.
No,
I've got a ratio to protect here. I have 3 points in wins, mind you, but I can't go that route.
Yes, he would be a target. Joe, if you're listening, he would probably be a target for someone like me. I complained on the weekend that 6 of the first 7 pitchers that I drafted in that labor league were on the IL. Not have been on the IL, are currently on the IL. 6 of the first 7 are on the IL right now. So I'm just holding.
Is that bad?
It has been that bad, and it's Zach Gallen and Framber Valdez and Kenta Maeda, and it just kept going on and on. Jake Odorizzi and Drew Pomerantz. Like, if I drafted you, you were on the IL. I have Brandon Woodruff trying to carry a pitching staff that's been taped and glued together. So it does have Carlos Rodon now, thanks to Fab. It has Austin Gomber, thanks to Fab. Hopefully, at least I got him for this week. Hopefully that continues to turn out well. And but I in my situation where my team's been so decimated by injuries, I might be the kind of guy who would say, sure, maybe, like, I'm not really a Snell guy, but if I was a little more, I might be like, sure, I'll buy low on Snell because I might as well take a chance on turning the staff around. Hope that they all get healthy later, and I can roll out like a really awesome staff in the second half and make up a lot of ground. So I think if Joe wanted to trade him, there's someone who would, but he'd just have to like sell quite low on him.
Oh, let's make this happen. I mean, what can I get you to offer him to make this go?
All right.
A hitter,
Roster's
right?
coming up.
It's got to be a hitter, given all your pitcher issues and the fact that you do have Rodon.
Oh, you never know. Maybe Joe would just like someone who's actually pitching. Do I have some guys who are pitching well? I have Alex Wood. Would you trade? I don't know if I trade Alex Wood for Blake Snell.
That is just that in and of itself illustrates the problem. How can you, if you're Joe, how can you trade Snell? I mean, that unless you're
Alex Wood feels fair, doesn't it, with his injury history?
Yeah, it might be if Joe's going to trade Snell, he wants to get like hitting. Perhaps I was thinking, because if you're going to trade Snell and you're already bad in ratios, how do you improve when you trade away an ace?
No, it's true. Yeah, well, yeah, it's true. Well, no, it would be like, I was trying to think of like an overachiever. Like, actually, I think Alex Wood fits the bill quite well because you're not getting like the Carlos Rodon types. But Alex Wood is someone who's pitched like great this year. Like he started the year late. He already has 5 wins. He has a 193 ERA and a 105 WHIP. Like, he's been great. If he doesn't get hurt the rest of the way, like, he should be really good. So if Joe could go out and find like an Alex Wood, if Kyle Gibson wasn't hurt and Joe really believed in him, like, go and find a guy who is not a name guy, but you really like and you really believe in. Would that be worth it? If Joe could go to the guy who gets Alek Manoah and on Sunday night and be like, sure, I'll take a risk. So it'd be more Joe just washing his hands of Snell, maybe that could be picking up a pitcher who's not a name guy but is pitching well. And Joe thinks he can keep it up. And whereas the other guy just looks at Blake Snell and is like, I got to take Blake Snell for, like, if Joe offered me Blake Snell for Alex Wood, I think I'd have to think long and hard about it. And be just thinking about a preseason value and just be like, it's hard to turn that one down. But Alex, I think so. The more I'm thinking about it, I would think long and hard about that. But Wood's the kind of guy who, when he pitches, he typically pitches really well. It's the injury history that would give Joe pause. He's pitching really well, and his team's pitching well, and he could keep it going. So, yeah, on the hitter side, I have a disappointing. I don't have a lot of hitters to trade either because I have injured hitters too. But a disappointing Ian Happ, that would be. Maybe in the ball, Ian Happ started to come around. I don't know.
He has. He's healthy now. Sure.
I have a disappointing Tommy Pham. I have a pretty good, actually, David Peralta, who's been playing pretty well this year. I have a pretty good Eric Hosmer. Maybe something in that range would be kind of what, where do you think Snell will go in your draft? I think I'm going to say round 13, 14.
Yeah, that's about pick 160 or so, 170.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, probably about
So
that.
if you so
I
fast
won't be
forward.
there for him. Liz is going to push me to try to get him because he's
Mhm.
like all about Snell, and I'm
Okay.
just not. I don't have any Snell this year, so
Right. And you
I
don't,
don't
and this isn't
want
the time
to.
to start.
I
So I
don't
think,
really need to. That's not an itch I have to scratch.
right. So I mean, if you're Joe, like if you could see those Memorial Day draft results, look at the group of players who go kind of right around him or right after him, pick out
Mhm.
a few guys you like, and start offering out from some 1-for-1s and see who would like them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, moving on from Snell. Anything else? Okay. Oh yeah, you mentioned you Gombered instead of getting Gombered,
Yeah.
Gombered them instead. Actually, he pitched. It didn't make any sense at all. I don't know why I tried to use that as a verb this time. He pitched very well against the remains of the Mets lineup, where you have James McCann batting third. You've got Thomas Nido batting fifth. The guys I haven't heard of are getting hurt in games. It's sad right now, and they're not getting some of these guys back. McNeil and Conforto aren't coming back for at least another month. It's tough. I mean, stream against the Mets, people. That's what we're trying to tell you.
Absolutely. And I think that was I only got one Gomber for this week, and it's in our labor league, and where my team's kind of hopeless. I wish I had got him in some other spots because I think the matchups this week were too good to ignore. And he had been pitching well, and like that so because he had the Mets early in the week, you knew that he was going to get that bad Mets lineup. Like maybe by the end of the week they get some guys back, but you knew he was going to get the bad Mets lineup, and then he gets the Pirates on the weekend. Like maybe he'll reverse Gomber me and stink against the Pirates on the weekend. But I mean, it's certainly off to a good start. I tweeted out about the fifth inning last night, like looking back on it, like how could he not be successful against that lineup? So and he was even more than successful. 8 innings is pretty impressive, but he's been pitching well. Now I heard you say to Scott, I think you were talking about Marquez, that no matter how well he did this week, you would not give in to the urge to keep him for next week.
And maybe I'll just keep him on my bench, but I won't use him. How about that?
Right. That's right. So that was my thought with Gomber. Like everybody says he's just a streamer for this week, and maybe he is, but he had been pitching pretty well. So if he follows this start up with a good win against the Pirates, I mean, I'm not saying you use him next week at home, you don't, but the following week he's on the road. So if you maybe you keep him on your bench one more week. I don't know, maybe not in a 12, but maybe keep him on your bench one more week and use him on the road again next week and just kind of take it 1 week at a time with him. I don't know, but I feel like he can't. I feel like getting Gombert is going to stick no matter how many good 2-start weeks he has on the road the rest of the way.
Got to have a really damn good season for that to happen. Yeah,
I'll feel bad for the guy if he has a great season from this point out, and we're still saying get Gombert in September. But it might. Sometimes things stick.
They might.
So it flows so well.
So let's push this Mets theory to its limit. Kyle Freeland, Antonio Senzatella, and any interest in either of them against the Mets this week?
I will not take the one who's facing DeGrom. I'll pass on that. Although the Mets typically never score runs when DeGrom's pitching.
That's true.
So, yep. You know what? I would stream either one of them. Yeah. How about that? In the next 2 days, I think I'd stream either one of them. What about you?
I just picked up Senzatella while we were talking.
Darn it. In Friends and Family?
Yes.
I have a lot of innings in Friends and Family, so that's okay.
It's kind of funny but yeah, I will do that, I think. So there you go. It's a sensible solution, I think, to try to do that. And I'm not.
I mean, how bad against that lineup? Like, how bad could it really go? Right?
That's just tempting fate, asking and framing it that sort of way.
No, I'm serious.
What could possibly go wrong?
I know it's baseball and anything can happen and you can't predict baseball and everything, but man, I don't know. That lineup they put out there last night, like I feel like any major league pitcher could at least at worst go like 5 innings, 3 runs, something like 5 innings, 4. I feel like 5 innings, 4 runs is the absolute worst it can go. And even that's not like a total killer, like that ruins your week. And I think the odds are really high that Senzatella goes at like 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 innings, 3 runs, something like that. I think that's the most streamable lineup. Do you think that's the most for a week? That's the most streamable lineup in baseball. I don't think it'll last. Like they'll get healthy again.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pittsburgh's evergreen. Recent results notwithstanding, Detroit is evergreen. Seattle is another lineup I'm attacking heavily. Yeah, I mean, I made a point of getting Caprilli in just for the start against them this week.
Yeah. I mean, I'll write Yahoo articles sometimes about lineups to stream against, and it'll be based mostly on like which lineups have been the best and worst this year or in the past month. And that's all good advice. But sometimes the best advice is actually just to look through the injury report and find the team that's missing half their lineup and throw out all the stats. Because if you're missing half your starters, how you've done this year or more, how you've done this year doesn't matter. It felt like for Gomber last night, it was basically a free ride after the cleanup spot, like all the way down until he got to the top of the order again. And the guys who are in those spots, haven't even played well, like Lindor and Dom Smith and guys like that. But it felt like a free ride from about 5 to 9 last night.
It did.
Yeah.
To that end, my Reds. I mean, they're missing some significant bats in that lineup. They got shut down by the Brewers over the weekend. Are you interested in Joe Ross tomorrow against them?
No, I don't think so. Like, I don't think I've totally, like, how bad is the Reds lineup right now? Like, I know they're missing some guys, but I feel like the Reds are deep enough that the lineup, I'm looking to see if their lineup for today is out yet.
Oh, it's always the first one out. Is
that right?
Good thing about them. Suarez is batting leadoff today. I wanted to mention that to you.
I saw that. So they're going
Tyler
all
Stevens
or nothing.
Has been playing a lot of first base lately.
So when I look at that lineup, it's not
pretty
good.
Thin. It's pretty thin.
It's really bad, actually. It's really bad.
Suarez isn't hitting. I mean, and Suarez has been horrible. Yeah, horrible this year. 148.
Yeah, but Winker, Castellanos, Naquin, like those are some guys who've had some moments this year and can do some damage. It's not as bad as the Mets lineup.
Yeah. You're understating Winker and Castellanos. They're leading the NL in hitting right now. 1 and 2 respect. I think it's Castellanos 1, Winker 2. They've both been amazing. And 356 right. And 355.
So that alone keeps them above where the Mets are at right now. But I think the Reds are a perfect point. I wrote an article maybe 3-4 weeks ago where I said the Reds were one of the best lineups to avoid because they were deep and they were hitting really well at the end of April and they had great numbers and they were a lineup to avoid with your streamers. That article is old news now. And now they're at least a lineup to consider attacking, if not full out attack. But like, it just shows you what like 2 or 3, 4 injuries can do to a lineup, right? You take Votto. I know that Votto is amazing. You take Votto out, you take Senzel out. Akiyama's not in there even to fill in for guys as a depth player. And all of a sudden, here we are. And the problem is they have outfield depth. It's the infield that's making that lineup so bad.
Yep. Just highlighting Sanford talking. And what about the Brewers? Is that a lineup to stream against? Yeah, they strike out a lot. Yelich did start yesterday. We should have mentioned that. I mean, he homers on Sunday on a 3-0 count, first homer of the year. And then he's back in the lineup tonight, by the way. So for what it's worth, but how is he getting a scheduled day off after like only a handful of games? I guess it's just because it was a travel day yesterday. Maybe that's our travel day Sunday to Monday, and he just want to give him the day. I guess he was DHing in the KC series. I think he got a day out of the lineup on Saturday against the Reds. Had a pinch hit appearance, struck out, but they've been very cautious with him since coming back.
Yeah, for sure. That Brewers lineup, it's not the worst. Like when you look, like often what I'll look at with the NL lineups is like 5 through 8, right? Before you get the pitcher spot. Narvaez has had a decent season. Kane, the major leaguer. Travis Shaw hasn't been good. Willie Adames hasn't been that good. But I don't know. It's better than what I just saw, I think, with the Reds lineup. I wonder if teams are going to change a little bit how they construct some of their lineups. I think the Giants are a really great example this year where the Giants lineup is just like their roster is just really deep and they can lose Tommy La Stella and just plug in Donovan Solano, who's not awesome, but he's not awesome, but he's not these guys the Mets have been rolling out. If you look at the Giants lineup most days, it's different every day, but you got Brandon Crawford 6th, you got Solano 7th, you got Steven Duggar 8th today. You've got, Austin Slater on the bench today, who's got some decent numbers this year and can come in. And like, it's a lineup where the guy who hits 1st, 2nd, 3rd isn't really much better than the guys who hit 6th and 7th. And maybe that makes the Giants are winning. Like they're doing pretty well. Maybe that makes them more sustainable. Some of these lineups, like I'm just scrolling through them right now, like Cardinals, like 6, 7, 8, Carpenter, Sosa, Lane Thomas, like not good.
Well, they just lost those guys. I mean, again, look at the injury list. There you go.
I know.
Speaking of injuries, one last question, and then we'll sign off for today. Mark asks, how long is Trout out? Would you try to buy low on him for the rest of the season? Yeah, I think they said 6 to 8 weeks,
Yeah,
right?
they did.
So we're still 5 to 7 weeks still remaining. It's a long ways away.
Yeah, going on the Scott Pianowski theory, 7 more weeks, right? It is Mike Trout, and he will probably, knowing the competitor in him, he will probably battle to get back. But I would assume 7 more weeks. So you assume all of June. I'd say at best he comes back right after the All-Star break, and maybe more likely a little later than that. So would I try to buy low on him? Yep. Well, I try. I'd see what's out there depending on the makeup of my team. Like he is the kind of talent who can come back and make a huge impact right away. So yeah, I would be interested in seeing maybe the person who has him is way down in the standings, and it just says like, I can't wait around 6 or 7 weeks. I'll take your pretty good player for him because I need someone in my lineup right now. So yeah, I'd make an offer.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today's podcast. Except, Fred, do you have anything you're working on you want to talk about?
No, going to look at actually when we talked about Joe dropping Blake Snell last week, I looked in Yahoo at hitters to drop who are widely owned. Talked to some Gleyber Torres, some Brandon Lau, some of those guys. This week I'm going to talk pitchers to drop. We'll see if Snell gets on in that article or not. I bet he will because there's a lot of 10-team Yahoo leagues.
All right, very good. Coming up tomorrow, we've got the Prospect Podcast. I imagine a little Alek Manoah will come up with Clay and
Probably.
James. On Thursday, I've got Bubba, Casey Bubba, joining us again. Brian Enterek, he's now in Tout Wars. He's always on fantasy Twitter, doing a great podcast with himself, and he also does one with Batflip Crazy Toby. So lots of stuff to talk about with him. And then we'll have, of course, 2-star starters on Friday. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please, as always, subscribe, give us a rating, a review. We do appreciate that. And if you have actual feedback for us, you can leave it in the review, or you can tweet at us at Jeff_Erickson, at Fred Zinkie MLB. Again, this podcast is sponsored by WynnBET, WYNN Bet. If you're allowed to bet, go to WynnBET. Check it out. That's going to end it for today. Have a great day.